employee health insurance plans cover it. Also, the state will reimburse for it through the state Medicaid program. Here's Jack Peter with one provider, Planned Parenthood of the Rocky Mountains.
Bunch of loan offers.
You can come to Planned Parenthood.
Just regular loans, nothing in the house or anything else.
And starting in January, Medicaid will also cover
You have it in your hand, then I'll care. Doesn't matter to me. When you have it in your hand, that makes a difference.
406.
A lot of offers mean nothing.
Support comes from businesses
I get offered all the time,
including Intermountain Health, offering video visits, in-person appointments, and life-saving emergency care. Learn more at intermountainhealth.org.
Yeah, it's going to be a pretty ride over there.
It's All Things Considered from NPR News. I'm Scott Gentro. Dozens are dead and more than 100 are injured after a deadly fire at a ski resort in the Swiss Alps. Many of the dead are believed to be young men and women. They were celebrating
in the Swiss Alps,
fire.
In the Swiss Alps, yeah.
They're on fire. The incident, one of the worst tragedies in the country's history. Here's our own correspondent Ruth Sherlock is following the story for us and joins us now. Hi, Ruth.
Hi.
This is clearly just a grim story. Can you tell us more about what we know happened?
Well, this all happened in the Swiss resort of Crans, Montana. It's usually famous for hosting top winter sporting events and a place that celebrities often visit. And last night, there were New Year's Eve celebrations.
You have a burrito in the refrigerator.
But then at about 1:30 a.m.,
I know, I want that kind of burrito.
smoke was seen billowing from
I don't want a sausage burrito. I want a bean burrito.
And police say they arrived within minutes, but it was already too late.
Thank you. Sorry.
They're not 2 for 4.
Huh?
So they're not 2 for 4.
That's what they said. There's 2 for 4.
Yeah, maybe if you have a Maverick reward thing.
I'm sorry.
What's he gonna do in his retirement?
Well, he's going to
Tell me next time. I'll put you in
he's
bed.
been doing publicly for decades, and he's
I
now
didn't know
trusting
until
his
it
kids
checked
and
out.
foundations to decide where it goes. And also, he's not completely leaving Berkshire Hathaway. He will still be chairman, and he said in a public letter to shareholders in November that he plans to continue giving out the public advice that has helped make him famous. Still, for all of his fans around the world, this year is definitely going to be an adjustment.
That is NPR's Maria Aspen. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
January 1st often feels like a clean slate, and for many people that means cutting out alcohol for months, known as dry January.
Dry
As
January.
Jacqueline
Huh?
Diaz looked into where
Huh?
this global phenomenon
It's a
began.
dry January,
This
huh?
time, about 9 years ago, Amanda Kuda says she had her last drink of alcohol. She had gone out on December 30th, and it turned into a long night.
So I woke up on New Year's Eve with this ferocious hangover, and I said to myself, this is not the life that I want to live.
So the next day, she committed to not drinking alcohol for the entire month. And when that month was up, Kuda says she felt some big health benefits.
Because I wasn't dragging myself down with hangovers and alcohol, I was able to all of a sudden work out every day, and then I was recovering so much more quickly because my body was in its most vibrant state.
And research bears that out. Studies have shown that abstaining from alcohol for even moderate drinkers can contribute to better sleep, weight loss, and clearer skin.
And then when you're using that energy to take care of your body, you just feel better.
People often use the term dry January to describe their own January to cut out alcohol for the month. But it's actually a trademarked phrase and began in 2011 with the group Alcohol Change UK. Their mission is to reduce the harm caused by alcohol.
We never tell people how much or how little to drink. We want to empower people to make that choice themselves. We do that by the behaviour change programs, like the Dry January program.
Richard Piper is the group's CEO. He says Dry January started with the group's former deputy CEO, Emily Robinson. At the time, she was reading more about the harms of alcohol consumption.
She was also training for a half marathon, and she wondered what would happen if she had a whole month of drinking.
The goal was to see how it would benefit her body.
This would really improve communicative function, boost gain in other benefits as well.
So in 2014,
Well, so much for getting any snow.
Dry January Challenge official and trademarked. It's now in its 14th year and it's this official challenge includes a daily email and online course
enjoy space
Like
and
getting
big
an
things,
infringement.
maybe I can do big things too. And I think for so many of us young women and girls, that was the motivating factor.
You
And
have
then when I
receipts for all
learned
this?
that Pam O'Shaughnessy's a life partner, when she passed away, I thought, oh my gosh, this story is way more interesting. You know, NASA was barely ready for women. They were not ready for this. And so this film is really for anyone who's ever had bypassed themselves to get where they want to be. And I think in 2025, that's a more relevant and more important story than ever.
Yeah, I had such mixed feelings watching this because a large part of the movie is the clips of her talking and the way that I remember watching as a kid, just the way that she's so calm and so cool and so like, oh yeah, no big deal, flying in a space shuttle, you know, and just the way that she was like this hyper competent, inspiring person. And then at the same time, you really get into the fact that in a way so much of that was a facade, and she had this really painful secret that she felt like she could not share with the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot to get into, but let's just start with the fact that her partner, Tam, is such a big part of this movie. Was it hard to get her to participate, or was that something that she was ready and open to do?
You know, to Tam's great credit, this is a story that she wanted to tell. I think it was important for her that the world to know the real Sally. Every astronaut from the beginning of time, you know, our very early Mercury astronauts, they stood next to their wives, or Apollo astronauts stood next to their wives, and their wives were celebrated along with them, and Tam never had that. And so in some ways this film is correcting a history that was never told while Sally was alive. But Tam is an incredible person. We've grown very, very close in making this film, and I think Sally's quite hard to understand, quite hard to read, and she becomes kind of the interpreter for us, for Sally.
That's the way it
And
is.
tells a very complicated story of who this
That's
person
the way
is.
it is.
Kristen, I'm curious about your experience making this movie, because you're sifting through at the same time all of these interviews and public appearances where Sally Ride has this carefully crafted demeanor.
Yeah.
And then you're talking to people like Tam and others in her life who knew the full story. What do you think was lost to the world by the fact that this important part of her wasn't known in real time?
Yeah, you know, I think it's
Are they
a
waving
real
back?
tragedy that Sally couldn't be Sally.
The horse is waving back?
While she was
No,
alive,
it was staring
and
at me.
like she could be. But Sally
Do I
also
wave
was
at
an introvert. She didn't like the public eye, and so I think you get to meet the
Usually
real
they nod
Sally
and
a
they
bit in this
snap
story.
their feet.
She's really funny. She's quick. Some of my favorite scenes are the scenes of her in press conferences when people are asking her if she would weep or if she's going to be serving coffee
Especially with
to
someone
a
like
man.
the
I
horses and
think
stuff.
she's really
I do too,
she
but
did
I
an
don't
incredible
know.
job of walking this very fine line.
You're mentioning this whole other plot point, this big story for not just Sally, but the other women in her instrument class. You're
I don't know,
talking
maybe
about this one particular press conference.
We end up
When there was a problem, when there was a funny glitch or whatever, how did you respond? Do you wait? What do you do?
Why doesn't anybody ask for
horseback ride?
Yeah, St. John.
Like the man who wins.
I don't remember.
I don't think that I react any differently than you.
I mean, it's just so farcical to hear that, and my two thoughts were, one, the way that she just kind of smirks and she's clearly bothered, but she lets it roll off her back a bit publicly. And two, I'm just thinking, I'm like, this is like the early mid-'80s. Like, this wasn't actually that long ago, and yet this idea of a woman doing this was just like unheard of to these reporters. Like,
That place out
what
in
was
California was a pretty good sized property.
You know, it really gave me hope that
She
change
had a
can
bunch of
happen.
cattle on
Change
it.
happens. You know,
Bunch of
change
sheep
has
and stuff
happened.
and everything.
They are some of the most offensive questions I've heard. The late night shows were obsessed with her. You know, is she going to bring her handbag up in space, and is it going to match her shoes? And like NASA gave her a makeup kit and packed her 100 tampons for
The
her
kids turned out all
journey.
right, but Rob
So there is a lot of humor in just how
drags me to Christian.
strange this was, especially the male world for a woman to be in space.
Can I just follow up? Because I had heard that anecdote of like the tampons as some sort of meeting. Like, how many do you think you would need? But in the movie you point out they actually gave her a pack of like, here's 100.
Remember he had his name
Here's
on
a
the trust feed and shit.
I mean, I love that story so much. They continue to calculate, and I think it perfectly embodies, you know, NASA engineers, the smartest people in the world. They can't figure out the very basics of like, the female menstrual cycle, and NASA was at the time when they arrived. There were no other women, and they
Old and short are out of mind on street.
A little bit of ice on it, but not much. A little bit of ice on the lake, but not enough to go fishing on it. They have a big ice fishing tournament in Stagecoach Reservoir outside of Steamboat. And they postponed it for 3 weeks because there's not enough ice.
In 1940, a blizzard trapped the aching donkey ahead for days. Things never fully recovered. His heartbroken only followed after a death-bitten crashes beneath next to Queens, the beloved borough of Findlay.
The Colorado Postcard with the support of Copel and Company.
There's no other way to say it. Colorado Public Radio exists because of your generous financial support. Thank you, Raymond Acevedo, Mona Ahmed and Chris Hughes, and Evan and Elizabeth Anderman for your Summit Club gift.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Dan Roman. 34-year-old Zoran Mondani is now mayor of New York City, the leader of the nation's biggest city and one of the country's most watched politicians. He was sworn in just after midnight, placing his hand out of Quran in a decommissioned subway station below City Hall. Later, Mondani took the oath of office at a ceremony at the steps of City Hall and said New Yorkers will see an ambitious public agenda.
We will return the vast resources of this city to the workers who call it home. Not only will we make it possible for every New Yorker to afford a life they love once again, we will overcome the isolation that too many feel and connect the people of the city to one another.
During the campaign, Mondani promised to start free bus service, open a network of city-run grocery stores, and freeze rents. He said all in an effort to make life more affordable.
How far are we going to go?
The Trump administration is freezing all
around to
federal
13.
funding to help low-income families pay for child care in Minnesota. Dana Ferguson with Minnesota Public Radio reports.
Minnesota was targeted for the funding cutoff before the nationwide freeze over reports of alleged fraud at child care centers there. Supporters of the centers rallied at the state's capital and blasted the Trump administration's move to freeze assistance until states can prove funds are being used for legitimate reasons. Amanda Schillinger is a child care center director.
We can't afford to continue to operate if we lose 75% of our enrollment. Without child care assistance funding, our center will close within a month.
The Trump administration says the freeze is meant to weed out fraudulent caregivers, but federal officials have not yet indicated what information the centers must provide. For NPR News, I'm Dana Ferguson in St. Paul.
Wall Street reopens Friday morning for the first day of the trading year, and you're listening to NPR News.
This is CPR News at KRCC. I'm Nathan Fernando Frescas. A philanthropic fund from Amazon owner Jeff Bezos has given a $5 million grant to support families in Boulder County. The Emergency Family Assistance Association in Boulder received the money from the Bezos Day One grant. Executive Director David Hope says the grant will about 9% of their annual budget.
This is a very specific grant that is focused on really stabilizing homeless families, and we're very excited about this opportunity.
Of the 32 other organizations that also received the grant, the Association of Boulder is the one that is based on Colorado. Meanwhile, the University of Colorado Boulder has launched a 5-year strategy to increase the enrollment of international students. CPR education reporter Jilly Bardeen has more.
This fall, CU Boulder reported a nearly 14% drop in undergraduate international students. Graduate enrollment fell 8%. The decline mirrors trends seen at colleges across the country. University leaders say federal policies have made it harder for students to study in the U.S. That includes stricter visa rules and past travel bans. National groups estimate Colorado has lost more than $10 million as a result. CU Boulder says the goal is a stronger, more connected global campus. Jilly Bardeen, CPR News.
Speed cameras and warning notices have reduced speeding by 80% in a work zone on the Diagonal Highway in Boulder County. CPR's Megan Liddy reports similar safety measures are coming to other highways across the state.
Starting this month, enforcement on the Diagonal Highway will go from warnings to actual fines.
for people going more than 10 miles above the speed limit. CDOT intends to expand the use of automated speed cameras for other work zones on its roads around the state. There are more than 500 injuries and 8 fatalities in work zones on Colorado highways last year.
Where's
That's a
California Park
decrease
at?
from 2024, but the state says there's still more to be done to improve those figures.
So that
I'm
way.
Megan Gurley,
Okay.
CPR News.
Meanwhile, the city of Durango wants people to slow down when biking along the Animas River Trail. Durango City Council moved to form a focus group to gain feedback on rules for the riverfront trail. Among the considerations is whether speed limits should be capped at 10 or 15 miles per hour. The concerns were driven in part by the increased speed of e-bikes.
So you go
Several
60
cities
till you
in
do 250.
Colorado, including Lafayette and Louisville, have speed limits of 15 miles per hour. This is CPR News and KFCC.
Support for NPR comes from the station and from Charles Schwab, offering investors choices like full-service wealth management, advice, investing, and trading on thinkorswim. Learn more at schwab.com. From the estate of John Brown, this podcast serves as an enduring investment in the future of public radio and seeks to help NPR produce programming that meets the highest standards in public service and journalism and cultural expression. And from the sustaining members of this NPR station.
It's All Things Considered from NPR News. I'm Scott Deck. For decades, January 1st was the biggest day of the year. It still is in some ways. There's several key playoff games happening, and fans are still talking about last night's big upset win. Miami took down Ohio State. But this is a year where college football's bowl system is different. Many argue that the expanded playoff has diluted smaller bowl games that long dominated late December, like the New Home Warriors against Gorilla Bowl, which fans know was once the Nathan Brady's Bowl, the Snoop Dogg Arizona Bowl, or my personal favorite, the Pop-Tarts Bowl. Some big schools like Notre Dame have skipped bowls altogether. So with all of these changes to the sport, this bowl season now doesn't still have the same significance. Chris Benini, a senior writer at The Athletic, is going to talk about it with us. Thanks for coming on.
Happy New Year. Great to be here.
Are you still processing that Ohio State game?
Yeah, I covered that game here in Dallas last night at Miami. Now going to the semifinals, upsetting the defending national champion.
I mean, we're coming up on the biggest stretch of it so far, but so far, what do you mean of this year's expanded playoffs?
I think the expanded playoff has been a lot of fun. This is the second year it's happening. If you look at the last 9 teams to make the semifinals of the college football playoff, it's 8 different schools. So we're getting a bit of parity in a sport that historically has not had very much of.
What do you think of this take that the playoffs have kind of really diluted the bowl system? I mean, I was poking fun at some of those bowls a little bit. The bowls are a big deal, especially for smaller schools that are excited to be there. Like, do you think this has really changed that system we're so used to?
Yeah, you have to say that it did, because usually the national championship or the semifinals wouldn't happen until June. And so you had almost all of December, the only college football you got were the bowl games. So now we're thinking about it more and more. That puts less focus on the bowls. And if you're a team that didn't make the playoff, the expanded playoff, you're less jazzed about going to a bowl game.
Do you think that this is kind of the beginning of the end of that system that we've been used to for a long time?
I don't think so yet. The TV ratings are very good. ESPN likes having all of these bowls. It's some of the only content you get at this time of year, and the ratings for them are very good. For a lot of these teams, it's the most watched game they have all season. You also have a good number of sponsors who want to get involved and really lean into the wackiness of it, like Pop-Tarts, like Cheez-Its do it, like Duke's Mayo, dumps a jug of mayo onto the winning coach, like Frosted Flakes, and dump Frosted Flakes on the winning coach. So the Bulls are trying to lean into the fun. So I don't think they're going away yet, but you did see a handful of teams opt not to play in the Bulls this year, and do wonder if that is a trend that down the road starts to happen.
I mean, I have organized my late Decembers around making sure I could watch the Pop-Tarts mascots game several years in a row now. So I can.
Absolutely. For people who don't know, there's a couple of live Pop-Tart mascots that at the end of the game, the mascot will jump into a fake toaster and a giant actual toasted Pop-Tart will come out, and the team will essentially eat the mascot alive. It sounds very intense when you put it that way. It's
Ritual
extremely
sacrifice.
fun. It's It's a ritual sacrifice. Pop-Tarts have leaned into it, and the team that wins has leaned into it. I think that's kind of the way these schools are adjusting to this new era to keep themselves relevant, to keep people talking.
That was Chris Manini, a senior writer at The Athletic. Thanks for coming on. Happy New Year.
Thanks for having me.
UN agencies in 10 countries, including the UK, France, and Canada, are urging Israel to reverse a ban on well-recognized international aid groups entering Gaza. Among the groups now banned is Doctors Without Borders, which provides life-saving care to people in war zones around the world. Air reporter Aya Batrawi and Anas Baba zoom in on the group's work in Gaza.
There's a ceasefire in Gaza now, but every household and family here has lost people, and everywhere one looks are the wounded. This Doctors Without Borders clinic in Gaza City offers something most others can't: specialized wound care. The medics here are treating 8-year-old Noor Zanu for burns from an Israeli airstrike 3 months ago. Doctors Without Borders or MSF has been operating in the Palestinian territories since 1989, but now it's being banned by Israel, along with around 40 other international aid groups. Israel says they failed to meet new security and transparency standards. The MSF doctor at this clinic tries to coax Tanu in her red tracksuit and ponytail to move her wrist, where the skin is raw in some parts and forming a tissue scar in others. Gaza's health system was decimated in war. Clinics like this run by international aid groups are helping keep Gaza alive. MSF alone says it treated around 1 million people in 2025. That's half the population. Hunter McGovern is an project coordinator for MSF in Gaza.
There's a huge waiting list of people that need care outside of the strip and they don't have the ability to leave and go access it. Our operation is already overstressed.
He says their work includes providing clean drinking water, maternity services, and physiotherapy. All of it is at risk. Israel's decision, which came into effect January 1st, bars MSF from bringing in aid or international staff to Gaza, as well as the occupied West Bank, which means relying entirely on local staff. Israel says the new rules that led to aid groups losing their registration to operate are aimed at preventing Hamas from infiltrating this organization. Israel says some local Palestinian MSF staffers have ties to Hamas, and one was a sniper. Ishaq al-Bardawil, a local administrator of MSF who was wounded in an Israeli attack in this very clinic, says the organization doesn't take sides anymore.
المؤسسات هذه بالذات يعني ما أخذت ولا مرة يعني مع جانب ضد جانب.
In a statement, MSF says it would never knowingly employ anyone involved in military activities, and that accusations without substantiated evidence endanger the lives of humanitarian workers. Here's McGovern.
Independent, neutral organization who just tries to provide health care to people. So we would all love to know why we're being halted.
Israel's new rules for aid groups will require they provide information on their funding and detailed lists of staff. The groups say this could endanger their employees, and that Israel has not said how this data would be used. MSF has had 15
I don't think it snowed right here as much as it did in town.
There are among some 400 aid workers killed in Israeli attacks in the war, according to the UN. Israel says its new rules also ban aid groups if they've engaged in quote delegitimization activities against the state or in legal persecution of Israeli soldiers. Groups now banned, like Oxfam and Save the Children, have been publicly critical of Israel's restrictions on aid, and their accounts could be cited against Israel in international courts. MSF has also documented through its field clinics Israeli army killings of Palestinians seeking food. At MSF's clinic in Gaza City, a 14-year-old boy winces in pain as his legs examined following surgery. Mohammed Ibrahim was run over by a truck when he tried to grab a sack of flour during what experts said was a famine in Gaza City. NPR's Anas Baba explains.
He's frustrated. He wants to run. Right now he's going to choose.
McGovern, who's in Gaza now, but won't be allowed back, says children need years of treatment.
Children missing limbs, children with wicked, life-altering injuries, and it's going to be many lifetimes before this is in the past.
Aya Batrawi, NPR News Dubai, with Anas Baba in Gaza City.
You're listening to All Things Considered.
What's that?
I wonder if they're going to close this area down this year.
I doubt it.
Every week, a guest draws a card from NPR's Wild has written deep young adult novels that perform in our stars.
Too many people live out here.
Yeah, that's true.
Green's latest book is nonfiction. It's called Everything is Tuberculosis. And it looks at why
close to residence
remains such a disease. We talked with Rachel Martin about living with a very different illness.
So they haven't yet, right?
Disorder.
Do you spend more time in your head or in
No?
Not that I've ever heard of. The only time I heard about a couple of these roads being closed was that year we had all that snow and everything was flooding.
I spend more time in my head.
They closed a couple of the roads that were next to creeks
hike in there?
because they were flooding.
Pretty intense, to be honest.
You couldn't get through
A little
anyway.
overwhelming sometimes. But I spend a lot of time in my head, and not all of it is healthy, if I'm honest with you.
We stopped here a few times.
I have, yeah, I have
Did you want to stop?
pretty severe OCD, and so it's well treated, and I work really hard to treat chronic illness like a chronic illness, but it is a chronic illness, and it is something I live with every day. And there's this great Edna St. Vincent Millay poem I think about all the time, where she says, I think she's writing about depression more than obsessive thoughts, but I think it's the perfect summary of obsessive thought. She says, she's writing about a snowstorm, and she says, 3 flakes, then 4 appear, then many more. Mostly bummers. And so it's hard to, of course, I don't know what I would
Well, I
be
missed
like
444.
without OCD, and so I can't imagine what it would be, but I'm sure I would be different in ways I can't imagine now.
What is your life?
Yeah, I like that way of saying it, that like there is an upside, but the upside is that it is who I am. I've never thought of that before.
I have a person dear in my life who suffers from OCD, and it has been instrumental. It's been helpful to learn more about it.
Save myself a diaper change.
Huh?
Save myself a diaper
Yes,
change.
it's debilitating. It can be debilitating.
What?
I saved myself a diaper change.
Yeah.
And this person is wonderful.
And you're worthy of love.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's maybe the only thing we're worthy of, but like, you're worthy of love is exactly as who you are. And so the fact that this is
Where
who
do all
you
the
are,
animals
and
go
this
when
is
you
part
get
of who you
cold
are,
like this?
means that this is also worthy of love.
They hide.
Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful. I've never
Usually
had
they go
that
lower in
before.
elevation.
That's such a gift to me. Thank you.
This isn't enough snow to do anything, really. Not enough to move anything.
Well, like I say, when I go outside and there's no animals running around, I see that nothing's moving out here. We got video after video after video saying that. I think I'm going to turn on that other cell phone.
You're listening to All Things Considered.
Use it too, huh?
This
That's
is
up to you.
CPR News and KRCC.
Well, once I get another check, it's only
Colorado's path to statehood
couple
was
of weeks or
but straightforward.
4 days, I
The
don't know when
process
it's
stretched across nearly 2 decades,
So I can
highlighted
go in and look
national
again.
politics, and reflected deep
No need to.
disagreements about power, representation, and belonging.
I know it's coming.
That winding story
It's there.
anchors
Show it.
38th Stone. Colorado becomes the centennial
Let's
state.
take my
It's an exhibit at History Colorado.
My bills. I have 3 credit cards. I need to
CPR's
pay.
Haley Sanchez has the story.
That's
Find
about
at
it.
CPR. As we get into 2026, it might be a good time to look at your finances. CPR's Sarah Mulholland has some good tips on how to recession-proof them. Things
I'll
like
pay
starting cooking in and buying store brand,
200
and utilizing your local library for
Still.
books, movies. Read more tips
158
at
has
CPR.
moved again.
Happy New Year. This is
Yeah,
CPR
use
News.
the debit card. I imagine sooner or later that we can get MasterCard offers. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we will. I always liked this house up here. Lonely, cold, and homey. This whole area through here is spooky. know the road, I just don't remember where that's at.
Alright, before we get to that, I'm just going to do a quick synopsis for anybody who hasn't read it. This book follows 4 friends. We got Savannah, Bernadine, Robin, and Glory. They're all in their mid-30s. They're all a mess in some way, and they're all looking for love. Each of them have their ups and downs with men, which, for listeners out there, just a heads up, we will be talking about sex in this conversation. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's a spoiler to say that what's at the core of this book is the friendship between the 4 of them. I think that's a fair enough to start. That's a fair enough place to start. Mark, you said you grew up with this book?
I saw it every day of my childhood on my mom's bookshelf. I mean, from that to the movie to the soundtrack, like my entire childhood is like wrapped up in Waiting to Exhale. Even though I have never read the book until today for the show. I'm sorry. I mean, I read this book when I was like 12.
12? 12's great.
Yeah, I mean, like, I couldn't follow or didn't care about a lot of details that were like marriage, divorce, husband. Those things were not very relevant to my daily life so far, but it felt like the epitome of grown folks' business.
Well, I think this book is a culmination of everything, of some of the stuff we've been
What's her
talking
elevation
about
now?
this season, right? When we're talking about this extra burden certain people have when it comes to criticisms of their book. Kind of like in-house family fighting.
We're not that far above Craig.
I think she's just being honest and truthful. It's a funny because I don't think we're quite open.
It's a real intercultural
Craig's what, 61, 62?
You'll have something like Joy Luck, where it's like Amy Cannon's trying to exercise these
Steamboat 6695.
family and her mother's past and all these things through all these separate women, or whether it's Your Eyes Are Watching God, where she's also having an intercultural conversation. Chris may not have felt that way at the time, but Terry McMillan is writing about what she knows and what she has experienced and what she's lived, and it's that thing where like the specific becomes universal. So it's why when I was reading Waiting to Exhale, I could see tinges of like Pride and Prejudice. Absolutely, just like absolutely. I was like, oh my god, I have to find a husband. That was like all about top book came by Waiting to Exhale. There was so much talk about money, finances, caring for parents, caring for children, salary, selling your house, selling your condo, paying off your student loans. Like, how much does a guy make? What does that mean? I was like, oh my god, are you with us? Right? Yeah. But it's the thing in this book that I think also probably of its time, but like as an adult now, like black woman in their 30s, professional, single, out in the world, there's a level of desperation in the book. Like, you can't make it through this world alone. Moms still talk like that now. They sometimes will still talk like that after you get married.
The thing about reading this book and watching the movie is that, like, I think most of it feels like I'm listening to a podcast. All the action happens in conversation, right? A lot of it is like, hey, you don't believe this date I just went on. Hey, you don't believe, like,
That's weird.
I went
2
on a road
miles
trip with
away,
this
got
guy,
all kinds of
and
snow.
I do think it's fair to say that without this book, you don't get Sex and the City, right?
Absolutely true.
100%. Yeah. Like, this sort of paves the way for mass market. Here's a conversation women are having. White women, Sex and the City is very white women, very like a certain class of white women are having. But they're talking very openly about sex.
What?
Like,
Wow.
we're bad at it.
Is that a fire?
Right?
No, it's a sunset.
Which then, I think then I'm jumping off, that's how you get to sort of like the media landscape we're in now, where it's like talking openly about sex in podcast form or whatever, is this iteration of like feminism, right? Is this sort of the natural evolution of things.
Well, yeah, all these books, podcasts, movies, TV shows are cousins. That's a really good point. I mean, Sex and the City absolutely jumped to mind for me when I was reading this book. Not just because it's like for women with different personalities or whatever, but you can actually really see the craft on the page as far as the dialogue and storytelling is concerned.
The chapters are like short and like they're all like specifically like I'm sort of meant to. It's like the perfect like commuter novel, where it's like you pick it up, you read 1 chapter, 2 chapters, and they're like tight little vignettes, like very progressive. Just like yeah.
There's Cedar Mountain in the sunset. Foggy. Well, we're gonna go home. It's getting cold and temperature's gonna get worse. Pretty, thanks.
Tyler Perry did
Pretty,
a lot of
thanks.
real estate with very particular kind of film. But a lot of it grabs from like the problematic man and like the independent woman, but with a more like moralistic viewpoint towards it, but not like the fun of being footloose and fancy free in Phoenix and the power of friendship. Like it'll be 30 years this year since the movie. Since the movie came out. It is 30 years since the movie came out. But yeah, so because it feels like such a very specific moment in time, that there is like a nostalgia for it. I agree.
I mean, I know you didn't love the book. I do feel like I agree with you though that like the film and even just like the place that the book holds in our culture, there isn't really anything I can think of where places I haven't seen much at all.
That was NPR's Brittany Luce speaking with Dave Parker and Aaron Bone talking about the book Waiting to Exhale. You check out the full episode on the Book of the Day podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. You're listening to All Things Considered, just from NPR News.
Support for NPR comes from the station and from the Pew Charitable Trusts, sharing about the state of housing in America on the After the Fact podcast, available at pewtrusts.org/afterthefact. From Melville Charitable Trust, committed to ensuring all people have a safe, stable, and affordable home that allows them to thrive. Information about ways to prevent and solve homelessness is at melvilletrust.org. From the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation, recognizing extraordinarily creative individuals whose ideas, solutions, and discoveries expand people's expectations of what's possible. macfound.org. And from the listeners who support this NPR station.
This is CPR News, 89.5 FM, KPRN Grand Junction, 88.3 FM, KPRH Montrose, and 88.3 FM, KPYR Cray. On translators in Gunnison, K210BS, Uray, K218BE, Parachute, K203FJ, Rangeley, K216BO, and Meeker, K216F. And on your smart speaker, say play CPR News. Support comes from the Bureau Foundation, uplifting young children, their families, and diverse Colorado communities through partnerships and grant making. Learn more at youngfoundation.org.
Support comes from businesses and organizations including Intermountain Health, offering video visits, in-person appointments, and life-saving emergency care. Learn more at intermountainhealth.org.
Well, the big news is there's a pill.
Weight loss drugs will change the weight loss industry, and big changes are coming for them in 2026. We'll tell you about it. Thursday, January 1st. It's All Things Considered.
Yeah, you can see the fog along the river there.
Okay, so there is a river there. Yeah, I see it.
I'm Scott Detrow. Jack Smith led the two federal civil cases against President Trump, testifying about them behind closed doors in Congress last month, and now tapes have been released.
Our case was built on, frankly, Republicans who put their allegiance to the country before the party.
I will tell you what Smith told lawmakers and what he didn't tell lawmakers. And New York City has a new mayor.
My fellow New Yorkers, today begins a new era.
Zoran Mondani's first day on the job. That story and more coming up after this newscast.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Janine Pearce. Dozens are dead, more than 100 are injured after a deadly fire at a ski resort in the Swiss Alps. Many of the victims were celebrating the new year at a bar that caught fire. Switzerland's president calls it one of the worst tragedies in the country's history. NPR's Ruth Sherlock has more.
Officials say they are opening an investigation and haven't yet identified the cause of the fire. They do say this was not a deliberate attack. Two witnesses told French media that waitresses had put what they described as birthday candles in champagne bottles, and that had set the ceiling, which is made of wood, ablaze. There's a video that shows on social media, and it shows flames appearing to spread across the bar.
NPR's Ruth Sherlock reporting. They're also investigating whether the bar was overcrowded. Mayor Zoran Mondani was sworn in today in New York City on a bitterly cold day with a crowd of tens of thousands. He spoke of a united New York City, pledged to serve those who voted for him and those who didn't. NPR's Katie Brittle has more.
Mayor Zoran Mondani promised New York that he would bring them together, uphold his ambitious campaign promises for things like free buses and childcare. Though he pledged to serve all New Yorkers, he emphasized his commitment to and appreciation for the city's working class.
I stand alongside countless more New Yorkers watching from cramped kitchens in Flushing and barbershops in East New York, from cell phones propped against the dashboards of parked taxi cabs at LaGuardia.
He also seemed to reach beyond his base, saying, quote, "If you are a New Yorker, I am." The city's first Muslim Democratic Socialist mayor won a decisive victory in November in an election that saw the city's highest turnout in nearly 25 years.
President Trump's expanded travel ban is now in effect. NPR's Michelle Kellerman reports from Tel Aviv. Many Palestinians will no longer be able to get a U.S. visa.
The State Department says it will reject visas for anyone using travel documents issued or endorsed by the Palestinian Authority. There are some narrow exceptions, according to a fact sheet posted online. Valid visas issued before 2026 will remain valid, and some Palestinian diplomats and athletes may be exempted. Liberal Jewish organizations in the U.S. have been urging the Trump administration to reverse a move that they say will delegitimize the Palestinian Authority and undermine diplomacy. The U.S. blocked the Palestinian Authority president from attending the General Assembly last year. Michelle Kellerman and
We were on the 29th, but we turned off the.
Wall Street was closed today in observance of New Year's. U.S. futures contracts are trading higher last check. Listen to NPR News from Washington.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the Lemelson Foundation, working to harness the power of invention and innovation to accelerate climate action and improve lives around the world. Learn more at lemelson.org. This is NPR.
This is CPR News at KRCC. I'm Nathan Frescos. Colorado lawsuits against the Trump administration are piling up. The count is at 49. Attorney General Phil Weiser said that's a sign that this administration is, quote, not normal. Weiser said most of the lawsuits stem from the administration lowering or cutting off funds that Congress has allocated. According to the Attorney General's office, 29 of the lawsuits have had early favorable rulings, but the majority are still in litigation. Speed cameras and warning notices have reduced speeding by 80% in the work zone on the Bay Highway in Boulder County. CPR's Megan Curley reports similar safety messages are coming to other highways.
Starting this month, enforcement on the Diagonal Highway will go from warnings to actual fines for people going more than 10 miles above the speed limit. CDOT intends to expand the use of automated speed cameras to other work zones on its roads around the state. There were more than 500 injuries and 8 fatalities in work zones on Colorado highways last year. That's a decrease from 2024, but the state says there's still more to be done to improve those figures. I'm Megan Curley, CPR News.
A running truck and a light rail train left one injured in downtown Denver last night. The Denver Post reports the crash happened just before 7 in the Five Points neighborhood. The truck's driver was treated by the paramedics. No one on the train was hurt. This is CPR News on KRCC.
Support comes from financial advisors Chuck Ronabow, Richard Keller, Linda Mendenhall, Josh Smith, and Zach Bryant, serving financial planning needs at Mount Garfield Wealth Management Group, Raymond James Financial, Inc.
That's just real there. Gotta admit, this radio station got all these. But yeah, no, that one.
It's All Things Considered from NPR News. I'm Scott Castro. 2025 was another big year for blockbuster weight loss drugs, and their momentum does not seem to be slowing anytime soon. So as people add losing weight to their list of New Year's resolutions, they might be considering trying one of these drugs known as GLP-1s.
I see a lot of these videos where these
correspondent Tim Lubkin is here to chat about what is in store for
they
these
get back
drugs
on and everything else.
Happy New Year.
Sitting on
So
the
what
bus
is the
and they're
biggest shift looking
harassing
forward
the other
in the
person.
world of GLP-1s?
Well, the
Turns
big
out
news
they
is
know him.
there's a pill.
Then he come running.
Until now,
Leaving
they've
their
largely been
arms.
injectable drugs. Ozempic, Wegovy,
Yes,
Mounjaro, Zepbound, they're all
Some of them are really
shots.
some are kind of
The Drug
stupid.
Administration approved